So you mentioned 3 years ago you actually became a Datto partner. Let's talk about, I guess, how you found us, how you actually went about implementing us. What did you like about Datto? You were obviously on a current solution because everybody's using backup today. What did the current solution that you were using, or I guess the previous solution that you were using, where were some of the shortfalls that kind of came in? But let's start. There's a lot of questions I just asked you there in one small bit. Let's start. How did you find Datto, and what was kind of the appeal when you first found us?
So I got some marketing information. It was a cold call. They reached out to me, let me know that they were actually in Canada now, because prior to that, we just weren't even going to take the call. That was a deal breaker for us. So when we found out that they were in Canada and all the data was there, we were looking at our current solution, which worked fine. And so for us, it was, well, why would we want to switch when everything's working fine? And so one of the problems with our previous solution was anytime there was any sort of disaster recovery, even if it was like file-based restore, one of the problems we ran into was a very junior tech was a little bit dangerous in the solution. The solution was a little bit, you needed a lot of experience to be able to work it. One of the things about Datto after doing our demo with it was that I realized that even my office manager could do a file restore. And that frees up an engineer from having to stop what they're doing in order to do a basic file restore. And the first unit we tried was the Alto. And the Alto, of course, doesn't have local virtualization, but it does have the full interface and the full experience. And so our previous solution, we kind of had two tiers. We had one tier where we backed up to a NAS, so we didn't have any virtualization instantly anyway. And then we had a higher tier where we were using servers and we were backing up to those, and then we could locally virtualize. So the Alto basically took care of the NAS replacement. And did more. And so we got on that, and it worked really well. And so very shortly thereafter, I needed to get a Cirrus because I wanted to see how the local virtualization compared to what we had previously dealt with. And after seeing that in action internally, that was it.
What are some of the other things that you like now that you actually are under the hood? You've been working with us for the last 3 years. What are some of the things that you really like about working with Datto today?
So just speaking technically, the product is the same all the way across the product line. There's even been recently, they've made it so that the Datto NAS features are actually in the Cirrus as well. So if you're building shares, you actually have the same feature set literally across the product. So basically what I'm trying to say is when you train a technician, he learns how to do it, and it's the same for all the units. Doesn't matter if he's on a big enterprise unit or if he's on a small business unit. And that's a key thing for us because it keeps it much simpler. Managing and ordering the devices, if we bounce over to sales from technical, when we were dealing with other solutions, there was a lot of moving parts and a lot of things to quote out. With Datto, it's figure out how much data we need to protect, order a unit, and we order a service for it. That's it. There's nothing else. It's very simple.
And then what about support? Support's really, really key these days. And obviously, I mentioned that you're here for our advisory board meeting, and we've got a number of large Datto partners that are here. And support is something that's been absolutely critical with any vendor that you're working with.
Absolutely.
How has support been for you?
So support's been actually really good. Datto actually has several tiers of support depending on the issue and depending on what you're working with. And we've watched them in the 3 years we've been a partner. We've watched the support increase in effectiveness to a point where the issue resolution is very, 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 very quick and effective. And again, for me, it's all about getting my most junior employee on the phone and being able to fix an issue and not tying up more senior people's time.
What are some of the things that you would suggest an MSP should be looking at when they're thinking about, do I do it myself or do I outsource it or give it to a company like Datto?
So that's great. So a couple things on that. One, when you have your single pane of glass for management, you can see all your devices. You can get all the information right from there. That makes it much simpler and much quicker to be able to manage and get all the information you need. When you factor in what people's time costs, which in any business, that's going to be the most expensive thing, unquestionably. And when you start factoring in higher tier employees, engineers and things like that, their time costs even more. So, when you factor those things in, it doesn't take much to really, make the cost, not inconsequential. It's significant. And so when you factor those things in, it really isn't that expensive. It really isn't. There's also been some things like the per agent pricing on the Alto. Really for us, it's about being able to offer one product for our entire customer base. We don't want to offer product A here and product B here and product C here from different vendors all over the place. Datto has an end-to-end solution for us, which is very, very, very critical in not having sprawl.
So when you're positioning Datto to a new prospect, I guess what are some of the points that you're actually hitting on when you're talking to an end user about why Datto is the right solution for them?
Okay, so again, we have to identify the type of end user we're talking about here. If this is one of a, a managed services and client that it's all inclusive, we sell them on the very, very high level facts that we're going to put a device in their network, it's going to protect all their data, it's going to be available on site in the event of a local disaster or in the cloud in the event of a total meltdown. When we're dealing with clients that maybe are an IT department and they have a lot more technical expertise, we have to get a little more granular and explain some of the more technical details, how it works, how it's actually taking the snapshots, how it's storing the data, the encryption options that are available, and what it's doing in the process, and how it does the screenshot verification, and how they can do local tests and things like that themselves, and going through that. So depending on the client, depends on the approach we take with that. But once we get through that and we show the value in what the product actually does, the cost becomes, on the IT department side, it becomes also a part of their labor. How much time are they spending testing tapes or whatever they're currently using? And when we factor that in, they, like us, know that time is valuable, and they look at that as part of the total equation. On the small business side, they just, not a day goes by that you don't hear about some horrible thing in the news happening. So these small businesses are beginning to understand that they do need to protect their data, and they just want to know that it's being done in an effective way. And that's, that's what we show them.
What are some of the gotchas? What are some of the things that that an end user will say to you, no, because of this? And then how do you overcome those objections?
So on the small side, you're going to get the price objection. Mm-hmm. But I already mentioned that the per agent Alto is as an example. If they're paying for some sort of file-based backup solution, you put an Alto in there and have it doing the per agent thing, and they're really going to have one server if they're a small client. The cost isn't that much more, and they actually get a lot of additional stuff. And again, depending on the end user and how tech savvy they are, we may give them access to do their own file restores. It's that simple that even with a moderate amount of skill, they can get in there and do that, and they like that. Then they don't even have to call any support. Then support isn't even needed at that point.
So you have a prospect today that is paying $50 a month for cloud-based backup. Okay. And then you're in there now offering a Cirrus solution that's going to cost them $500 a month. How do you position that? What are some of the things that you would suggest an MSP talk about in order to justify that kind of $50 a month to $500 a month, and then what's all encompassing and what's involved in that? And how do they mitigate the extra expense there?
So we have to look at the client's needs, not just what we want to sell them. So if the client's needs are a simple file server, that's all they have, then maybe putting in an Alto will actually protect them much better than they currently have, because they'll have the ability to access from the cloud and locally if they need to do a restore. And the cost isn't really more than what they're paying. If they actually are running an application server locally and they were to have an issue, they would have downtime. So you move them to the Cirrus because they're actually going to get the feature of reducing downtime by having that local thing.
Being channel only, Datto has actually invested quite a bit into marketing assets, and we spend a lot of time with tools and tips and tricks and best practices and ebooks and everything along those lines, brochures, all in an effort to help you kind of go to market with your offering. Have you utilized some of the marketing assets that we've got?
Yeah, absolutely. In the portal, there's actually a lot of marketing materials. My favorite's the price sheet.
Oh, yes.
It's fully editable. So you go in, you adjust it to all your prices, and then if you're dealing with the IT department type prospects where they would actually, like to look at what their options are, you can actually just send it right over to them. There's also some for the smaller businesses, there's some options, like there's a crypto locker campaign in there, and it basically explains, the threat and everything like that, and it's all pre-done. And I mean, I'm a small business. I don't have a lot of marketing resources on staff. That sort of stuff's difficult for us. So to have it all pre-done is really effective.
So you've been talking to prospects, you've got them interested in it, you've got them to understand the difference between traditional backup or simple cloud-based backup or file-based backup versus continuity, which in essence is the solution that you're offering there as well. Let's talk about kind of the sales process. You've got them interested now. Do you include it in a contract? Do you have long-term contracts, short-term contracts? So what's the process in which you actually design the setup for the customer at this particular point?
So we try to go for a standard of a 3-year contract, but, and as I'm sure you know, Datto includes a free warranty upgrade if you get them on a 5-year contract. So sometimes that extra savings really makes a difference. So getting them on a 5-year and having a 5-year life cycle for servers is pretty standard for clients. So having the Datto on a 5-year life cycle also makes a lot of sense. But we do like to standardize on at least a 3-year, and that's in line with the standard warranty as well.
And that's bundled into your managed services offering? You do that for both your small customers as well as your MSP customers?
So again, if it's a managed services client on the really small side where we're bundling it, I mean, you know, that was how we used to do things. Our smaller clients, even now, we try to actually sell them the box. So for us, like there's, you know, a couple different line items on a managed services invoice. There's going to be the, you know, the managed services for all the devices or users usually. But then you're going to have a line for the backup appliance and the monthly cost for it. And that's going to be broken out separately, but again, on a 3-year term.
You've obviously, you're from a small town. You've had significant growth. You're doing very well in your geographical area and getting out there and spreading the message. And a lot of people are using fast computers. If you have, if we have an existing Datto customer that is kind of in the same situation maybe where you were 3 years ago, and they're looking for those growth opportunities, what's some of the advice that you would give a small Datto partner that's looking to grow their business at this particular point to maybe get to where you are?
So there's a few things. One, I mean, the marketing materials that we talked about earlier, extremely beneficial. Two, if you're stuck in a certain way of doing things and it's not working, then maybe you should think about expanding those a little bit. So for us, we used to focus just on doing the all-in managed services. Everything had to be in this box. And then we realized that we had a lot of great opportunities working with other clients that didn't quite fit in the box. And since we did that, it just, you know, up and away. And that was huge for us. So I would definitely say to make sure that you're not ignoring the resources that are available to you. If you don't already have a unit in-house, it makes it a lot easier to, you know, to understand and use if you're actually using it internally. And then, you know, there's other things like that disaster demo.
Disaster demo kit.
The disaster demo kit, I mean, it's everything you need. There's no recurring cost with it. You buy it and then you can set it up whether you want to do lunch and learns in person, whether you want to do webinars, or whether you want to just, you know, do it for prospects. If you do that sort of thing, you show people that it works. I think a lot of people these days are sick of seeing, you know, just a message like an email, you know, it's great, everything's awesome. No, skip that. I mean, you might need to do that just to meet people, but once you've talking to somebody or once you've got their attention, show it to them. It works. You believe in it. We believe in it. We have no problem showing it to anybody anytime. You mentioned our Halifax excursion there, and one of the things we did was we did that totally live. Yep. We did not stage or preemptively set up we just live did the thing. Why? Because we knew it was going to work.
It works.
And that's it.
Yeah. You kind of had the opportunity to look under the hood. If there's an MSP that's looking at Datto, trying to figure out whether they're the right solution or not, what would you suggest to them? What would you recommend? Because now that you've seen behind the curtains, maybe share your experiences.
Well, you got a couple options, and it really depends on your type of customer base. If you have customers that would fit into the Alto solution, like you mentioned, like the cloud-based only type of thing, or order one in. Throw it in, even your own environment, test it out. If your customers are going to fit more of the Cirrus model, then skip the Alto and just get a Cirrus in. Whether you want to put it at a client's for testing or whether you want to put it internally for testing, I do recommend you test internally first just so you understand the product. You don't want to be testing on your clients. But once you understand the process, then there's nothing wrong with getting it out there at your clients. And again, you know, the disaster demo kit is a great option to go. A little bit more of an investment up front if you haven't done any deployments, but once you hit the ground running, it's a great way to get going with things. And again, don't ignore the resources that are available in the marketing portal. There's the partner portal as well. A lot of feedback, a lot of good information in there for partners, and the marketing material that's made. I mean, I don't know how much more you can ask for. Do you know the marketing team? I wanted an extra line of a certain item. It was an upgrade thing I wanted listed. I emailed them and they put it in the portal like a day later. I mean, I don't know, like, you know, what else you can say about that.